I still listen to it and think, I can't do this. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? This is insane. And then I have my safety net of people that have known me for decades
Yeah.
where I'll go back to them and go, this is a job, but I'm kind of freaked out. And they'll be like, boo, you've
Yeah.
done, like, you did that on this program. You did that already on this.
Yeah.
You proved it. And then it's like I have to recenter myself.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm also a badass bitch because I was trained by badass bitches.
Welcome to Uneventful, a podcast where we pull back the curtain on the world of events. Join me weekly as I speak with people in and around the industry about their experiences. We talk about turning chaos into calm, diva behavior, take your breath away moments, and those bonkers instances that even the most seasoned pro could never plan for. Event planner is consistently listed in the top 5 most stressful jobs. These chats will illuminate why that is and why, as my friend JJ says, it takes a special kind of a-hole to work in events. We're getting a ton of different perspectives from graphic designers, AV and tech gurus, to stakeholders and the folks running the venues. We're spilling the tea and laughing hysterically. Okay, y'all, let's pull back the curtain. It's showtime. This episode features someone I've had the pleasure of watching grow into and through a career in events. James and I worked together nearly 20 years ago on an inaugural developer conference for Microsoft. I was the logistics director, and he was one of the leads for a group we hired to help with various functions that come with the conference of 2,000 attendees. Since then, we've evolved in our careers and lives, as one does, hopefully, and stayed in touch mostly through social media. I inherently knew in 2006 that when we met, somehow I'd maintain a thread of connection to James one way or another, which makes this an especially exciting episode for me. I'm so thrilled to have my very good friend and just a yummy human being, James. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm totally blushing. You guys can't see it, but I'm totally blushing. Well, it's reciprocal. I think meeting you right away, I think there was an understanding right off the bat that we were kin one way or another.
Yeah.
I probably didn't even know then yet that we were kin, but
Yeah.
we were.
Yeah. I felt it. I knew. I knew. Uh, so let's just jump right in. Why don't you tell us your origin story?
You bet. So I have been in and around the events industry since I was 17 years old. So yesterday. And
Of course.
I mean, I started off doing weddings, tons of weddings. In the church world, they're everywhere all the time. So it was quite a lucrative career as a 17-year-old.
Sure.
So did that for years and then got pulled into the Microsoft temp staffing side of things.
Mm.
And that was sort of my introduction into the corporate side of this world. It's so interesting because at that point in my life, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I got introduced to this world that was an amalgamation of people and scenarios and design and all these things that I find so fascinating and love individually. And
Right.
then it actually be in a job and career path. So I fell in love young, did the temporary staffing for a handful of years, and then moved into logistics and hotels management. Spent a few years after that solely in registration and tooling. And then
Oh,
from there, ended up going independent. I am not a scholastic person. I'm not an academic,
same.
but there was something about the nerdery of laying out websites that I just clicked with. I don't know,
Oh, that's
but I
so
do.
funny. I mean, for me, I don't know how people handle like the registration piece of like the major conferences that we've worked on. Like, I'm sure you worked on like, mix that doesn't
Yeah,
exist anymore, but those that are like 5,000 people,
yeah.
that it's too much minutia for me.
It is a lot. I feel like for people that take the events industry and they fall in love with it as a career option,
Yeah.
we have to be a little bit masochistic. Like,
You're not
because
the
it
first
is,
person who said this, by the way.
no, it's the reality. It is not an easy industry. I think Forbes back in 2018, Forbes listed it as the number 4 most stressful career path. I mean, it was
Yes.
like, I think number 3 was brain surgeon. So,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, registration is the piece that, like, that sets the tone, right? If you have a shit experience at registration, you already go in thinking like, I'm furious about this
Yeah.
conference. My boss is making me go to this thing, and like that is um I love it in that it does set the tone, and I love to like create a welcoming environment and all
Yes.
those things that really starts with at the registration. So the fact that you worked on that for years is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
good
and
for you.
then in 2010, I went independent as a consultant, and I spent about 7 years kind of touching all of these different pieces again
Mm.
from this holistic perspective, having been in that process from the hotel contracts into the registration process to the space allocation and layout. And then like the temporary staffing piece of it, just to know how people move
Oh, yeah.
space.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being 19 years old in a hallway at the San Diego Convention Center when they released 5,000 people to walk towards us, and we had to separate them by their regional groups. Like Mia and Latam and Americas. And so here's little 19-year-old me. I obviously you can't see me, but I am 5'6". And here I am with about five other people my age, literally jumping up and down and yelling at our top lungs, Amia to the left, Amia, trying to get 4,000 or 5,000 people to move into their right lunchrooms. So
Oh,
it
the
gave us
human
this perspective.
directionals. Love that.
Oh, it was so, and then it took them probably 20 minutes before someone in logistics came over and goes, You guys, it's on the right. We had gotten
Oh,
it just absolutely amazing. So all of that experience culminating into a chance to consult on those things, and then sort of land where I wanted to after that. But, I have to say from the get-go, I landed in this industry, and by the grace of God of the universe, I landed with such badass female managers
yeah.
and mentors. I mean, and I have no problem dropping their names because they are some of the coolest women in history.
Drop
And
them.
I mean, like Tracy Wells actually found me. I
Oh,
worked with her as a temp staffer
yeah.
on the CIO summit. I was just
Oh,
her one reg temp,
oh my
and
gosh.
she wrote a letter of recommendation. She found me 6 years later and was like, hired me on the spot. And I
Oh,
started doing registration on her. She is such a brilliant woman that this incredibly difficult and frustrating and bureaucratic world of registration, especially at the government level,
mm-hmm.
it was a fun puzzle to her. And she could think 9 steps down the road. And it was like, I would just stare at her in awe in meetings, like, how do you think that far ahead?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I think without people like that,
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have gotten the exciting gamification of this very difficult world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting for me now, as far along as I am in my career, to look back and think, oh my gosh, I was so wide-eyed and didn't, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Can I do this? And then to like be where I am now and go, of course you can. I feel that I feel sad and love for that younger version of me at 31 going, oh, I don't know, or 28, like, I don't know if I can do these people are so good at what they do. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can ever be that good.
I don't know that I've even gotten over that like you have, because I still feel like when I go, for like an intake on a new program, I still listen to it and think, I can't do this. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? This is insane. And then,
Wait till you hit 40. It changes.
I did hit 40.
Oh, oh my gosh. People, if you could see him, he looks like he's about 32.
I love you, and the check is in the mail. But I still do. And I have my safety net of people that have known me for decades
Yeah.
where I'll go back to them and go, hey, this is a job, but I'm kind of freaked out. And they'll be like, Boo, you've done,
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
did that on this program. You did that already on this.
Yeah.
You know this. And then it's like I have to recenter myself.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm also a badass bitch because I was trained by badass bitches.
You're
So
right. Yeah. I mean, but that's like, I love that sort of vulnerability of you to go back to those people and say, I think I don't know what I'm doing. Like that takes a lot because a lot of people just go, oh, no, no, I got this. I got this. And, deer in headlights. And then, they flounder a little bit maybe. And so I love that sort of almost vulnerability of you going like, hey, can I do this? And just getting that refresher like, oh, girl, come on, babe. You
yeah.
can do this. You've done this.
But that also, I think, it's a privilege of the people I was trained by,
Yeah.
the people that and I'm so grateful because again, this is across different companies,
Yeah.
different years in life, but all of them were people, almost all women, that made collaboration a thing to excel in. They made
Yeah.
team success a thing to
Yep.
excel in. So
Yep.
I didn't have to deal with these egos and narcissism of like, I need to be the brilliant brainchild.
Right.
Be a part of a kick-ass team.
Yeah.
Like some of my favorite event seasons, my favorite event worlds, and listen up, every single thought leader and people manager and executive, creating a healthy team is going to save you millions of dollars a year.
Without question. Listen to him.
Yeah, with because you don't have the backstabbing, you don't have the panic, you don't have the witch hunts, you don't
Yep.
have like the ease of communication flow is going to save every executive literally millions of dollars a year.
Yeah. Oh, without question. And I do think like I when I interviewed for my first sort of like corporate role, um doing Microsoft conferences for a small shop, one of the interview questions was, if you had a superpower, what would it be? And my answer was, I'd want to be one of the Wonder Twins. And it was a panel interview, and they looked at each other like, what the hell is she talking about? And one of them like looked up at me and she said, most people say like invisibility or flying, like that would really help in the event space. And I said, yeah, but honestly, like you can't do it alone. And so
Yeah.
I'm such a collaborator that being one of the Wonder Twins is absolutely like hands down my jam.
Yeah.
So I hear you, like the collaboration, and if you can find people who are open, and I do, I've seen this, the women, there are women who are competitive and shitty and whatever,
Of course.
but there are more women who are supportive and want to mentor
Mhm.
and fit like they feel successful when the people who come behind them are successful. It's not a
Yeah.
competition like, oh, there's this younger person who's going to steal my thunder or whatever. It's like, no, no, no. Come one, come all. Let's build this amazing magical thing together. So I love that you had that experience.
I had this one client, and I worked with her for probably 6 years as my client, and she was running this amazing leadership training program for Microsoft, and it, roughly 2,000 attendees a year, and she was that way. She was going to build her band
Yeah.
and pick the best, and
Yeah.
find her SMEs, and to probably some companies' chagrin, she didn't go buy like a whole agency.
Right.
She was handpicked for each station based on, and anyone that's done this knows that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But she wanted something special, and to this day, we are all still close. And matter of fact, she and I still work together.
Yeah.
She got riffed in the 2017 rifts, and she started her own company, Angel Events. But she's just brilliant, and to this day, we had a scenario where she's fastidious to make sure that people are not accidentally othered in the
Yeah.
registration and the event process.
Love it.
And this was 2011, 2012. So she was way ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah.
So things like integrating into registration ways to note your needs without feeling like you're getting funneled into a separate bucket and treated
Yeah.
differently.
Yep.
So like we went through that and asked all of the ADA questions and the legal questions, and we went through and took the event guide and catered it to those. We had one particular person that was in a wheelchair, and we had another who had a hearing disability. We took the guide, and I think I spent a total of maybe 2 hours. And I took the event welcome packet and I adjusted it to them, giving them hints on what hotel door to come in the plenary session, which doors to go through, where to sit so that you're closer to the speakers or closer to the stage to lip
So
read.
beautiful.
Again, 2 hours of investment.
Right.
They came back to us in literal tears. They'd never had that before. The
Ugh.
fact that they had that in 2012 is horrendous
Right.
and such an easy investment. We ended up winning awards on that event because that ended up going up to executives.
Yeah.
That is now policy and process for a lot of the events in that org. So it's like those kinds of things
Yeah.
that breeds.
Yeah. Right. And, and you just feel such pride when
Mm-hmm.
it was like, you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't even a heavy lift, but it made such a difference to one. So most people would go,
Life
oh, it's
changing.
one person in 2000. Who cares? We don't have time. But
Yeah.
it's it's those little details. And if you're an events person who's worth anything, you know it's those little details that make all the difference.
100%. And we forget, again, executives honoring the dollars you're spending.
Yeah. There's the Maya Angelou quote. People will forget what you said and what you
Mhm.
did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And
Exactly.
I carry that through with me through, like, I want my sponsors to have a good experience. I want the attendees to like, every single person should feel like their time was not wasted and that they came away with something really not special necessarily. Like, you're at a developer conference, so there's nothing special about that, but that you felt like it wasn't wasted time and you're excited to go back and tell your colleagues, like, this was a really great experience. I want my sponsors, yes, the speakers, the stakeholders, everyone to have that same experience, not just the keynote speaker on the stage and who cares about everything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is what should be recognized as the goal of an event.
Yes.
And we know that money comes with numbers. Numbers are easiest in things like attendance metrics, but we forget, like I've said this so many times, and I'm still waiting for executives to hear me. And have we noticed I've got like a intended
Yeah.
direction
Right.
as we're in a leadership crisis in the business industry. But
Mhm.
we take such a heavy weight goes onto the number science,
Yep.
and we don't factor in the people science
Mhm.
that will absolutely negate that number science.
Right. Right.
It really will, because these people, we know how fast people are traded like cards from
Yep.
one company, partners, customers to the next.
Right.
They're gonna remember that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that can affect your sales, that can affect your leadership, that can affect your partnerships. So there's this holistic perspective of the industry where, just like people, we want to
Right.
be as good to the random person we meet on the street as we do to the person in the elevator to the person
Yep.
we're interviewing with.
Yep.
These businesses need to take on that same mentality.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much gets lost. And, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, I bellyache quite a bit about how people are not treated like human beings anymore in the
Hmm.
work world. It's just like, what can you do for me? How cheaply can I get it done? And how quickly can I get it done? And then you can just go straight to hell because I'm done with you. Like, I've used
Yeah.
you up and thrown you away. And, like, we're all still human beings. We all still have our anxieties and family members going through health crises and
Yeah.
all the things people, it's just, I wish people could just take a moment and care less about the bottom line for like, I understand there are all these things that are super important. Money's important, fine, but also human beings are important, and how you treat them, again, from an attendee perspective, as a
Yeah.
leader in the workplace. I think it's so important.
Well, you have lots of people that say that makes us snowflakes too, for thinking that way. But I
Well, then fine. Call me whatever the hell you want. I'm a snowflake, but I care about fellow human beings, and I care about, from an
absolutely.
events perspective, I want everyone to feel like they have been seen and that they are recognized as a valuable, integral part of what is happening on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that's going to make you better on so many facets of the job. I think about a particular event I was in 2007, and that empathy, that constant
Mm-hmm.
view of the people around you, from the attendees to the workers to all of that. We had Bill Clinton as the speaker. And at that point, it was a bit more of a volatile character in the public.
Yeah.
I think we've all chilled on that a bit now and look at it with
Yeah.
more of a fondness as we realize everything they were dealing with. But
Yeah.
that site clued me into someone that was actually on the temp staff that I actually had never moved from the floor, because I could see the agitation and the pent up
Mm,
energy. And from a security perspective, this was a potential issue, because
yeah.
he was about to be walking through, and this person's right here. I don't know that I can trust this. And I'm seeing this because, again, I'm aware of the people around me and the energy that's coming off and what's
Yeah.
going on in their facial expressions. Thank you, Theater Mom, for that awareness. But so sure enough, I had to kind of under the desk call my security team and have them kind of, again, to not other that person, move all of
Sure.
that stuff out that wasn't necessary. But again, that was a security issue that
Right.
comes from the kindness to note where people are at, to feel the
Right.
people around you and not be so siloed in your own experience.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's so important. And I have a story about doing a Joe Biden after they were elected. I did a trip with him and I was going through all this stuff, like going through a divorce. My grandfather passed. I'd moved across the country to give myself physical space from what was happening with the divorce and all the things. New to DC. I so a friend calls me and says, "Do you want to do this trip to St. Louis?" I was like, "God, yes. I need to get out of my own head. I'm so excited." I go to St. Louis. I'm supposed to staff Dr. Biden. The night before, after dinner, I start to feel a little panicky and I'm like anxiety and I can't sleep. And so then I'm like, I've been awake all night in this panicked state. And I get up in the next morning. I'm like I've never done yoga, but I'm trying to think of like, what would a yoga pose be that could calm my insides? Like the thought of leaving my hotel room was terrible, all the things. And, this is 2009. And, I, the director of advance called me and he was like, Sandra, you gotta pull it together. Like, what the hell, girl? And I was like, dude, I don't know, but I am free. Like, I'm crying, all the things. So for you in 2007, nobody cared. Like, they were like, get your ass in the motorcade and like, do your job. And so for you in 2007 to have that empathy that no one else really had at that time. No one was as heightened and aware as we are now of like, okay, it's okay that like no one's gonna die if you can't get in that car.
Yeah.
So for you to have that moment of empathy and clarity and like, let's just again, not other the person, but make sure
Yeah.
everyone is safe.
Remove the potential threat,
Right, right. But I just think that just speaks volumes about you and being ahead of your time, right? Like people are now realizing that that's a thing that you should do and be and say and how you behave, but 10, 15, 20 years ago, not so much.
No, it's been a wild ride. And I don't again, that was under that first registration company and they were amazing, but I had the leadership there.
Yeah,
That I mean
yeah,
that's how they operated as leadership in the office. So of course I took
yeah.
that on the show side with me.
Yeah. I mean, it's so lovely to have those kinds of mentors
Hmm.
is so invaluable. And I wish there were more people who could share that. I haven't talked to many people yet who have had that glorious experience that you have. So brava to you.
I am grateful. And that these are all women that I still process with today as a business person, as I'm growing and changing and learning. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen even just from sort of like the DE and I conversations over the last 6 years, how much that
Mm.
conversation has changed and grown. I I'm a I'm a white male. I'm going to have probably a more growing to do than anyone. But to constantly step outside of myself and try to learn, that should be sort of the humility that we're always in. I will be 75 years old, probably still doing this,
Yeah,
uh,
same.
and needing to constantly grow and learn as there's new generations, new ethos for the business industry, new technologies and how we engage.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is something that is so commendable, and that's just straight up good parenting, by the way. I just want to put that out there, like that you
Mm,
remain curious, that you remain someone who wants to continue to learn, because not everyone does. They're like, I got this, I know this, and they just like go through their so just the fact that you're still curious and you still want to learn and recognize that life is an evolution, and so
yeah.
you're not going to know today what you know 2 years from now, and that's super cool, right?
I don't think people remember how far we've come so fast.
Exactly.
I remember being a temp staffer 20 years ago at an event. I mean, and this event, I won't mention who and when and where, but like we had exotic cats chained up behind the food and beverage table as decor.
What?
Yeah, we we had we then known pop stars,
My.
with like Vegas dancers and pasties at this
Oh,
corporate event. And
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know that that would have shocked most people back then, but at the same time, I was there with a bunch of my female friends that were staffers, and I saw how uncomfortable it made them. I saw how
Yeah.
much it changed the atmosphere and how the safety they felt
Yeah.
in that place because we're out someplace exotic. There's obviously sort of this wild vibe and nature to it all, and that was the shock and all that we used to have the budgets for back then.
Right.
Um, but just those kinds of things to see the lack of care, the lack of empathy, the lack of safety, the lack of awareness,
Yeah.
that wasn't that long ago.
No.
There's no way we could do that now. No, there's no way we would want to do that. And people
No.
now would have the power and the voice to say, I probably won't do this event with you because I don't care for its layout.
Right. Without question. I remember working on an event and one of my coordinators, I was like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, well, the client asked me to pick out basically skimpy outfits for the
Mhm.
servers at this after party. And I was like, oh my
No.
gosh, this is crazy town. But again, like
Mm-mm.
I was young and, didn't feel like I could push back at all. And I mean, it was the client, right? What am I going to say? No, 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 you shouldn't do that. Like it's your money, your budget, whatever. I'm just here to implement what you tell me to do. But holy crap, I was just like, this makes me sick.
Oh my goodness. I mean, just a few years after that, I was on an event that was government. And I was working in the front for the registration, and I had a government, not ours, a different one, was a director of security for a vice president. And he was like half lounging on my registration desk, flirting with all of my wonderful reg ladies.
uh,
That wasn't that long ago. Do you know how scary it is to be
yeah.
a 5'6" man trying to go to a man with a machine gun and tell him to stop flirting with your reg folks? I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. They're gonna find me dead somewhere. And, it wasn't that long ago, and I'm grateful to say these things would not fly now.
Yeah.
At least
Without,
in the corporate ethos that I am privileged to still work in, that would not
yeah.
fly.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you're doing have your own company
I
or
don't.
you're,
I've toyed with that idea, but I've actually stepped in with a couple different consultancies that are already there,
Mhm.
and in the space, which are great. Again,
Yeah.
my current boss, Melissa Batham, an incredible woman. Like she's just again kick ass.
Yeah.
Um, she saw space in this business world for a company that aggressively honored women, people of color, queer people, and saw that they needed still, as much as we've gone really far and we've put a ton of protections in place, we still needed a tribe.
Yep.
And so she's built her company, Free Mind Seattle, and she's just kick ass as a boss. And she's created an incredible company, Ethos. So I am thrilled to be in there and working with them and alongside them. So that consulting space has been good.
Yeah.
I've been open to other opportunities down the road. I feel like my career is in a bit of a growth plate that I'm excited about, but right now just
Good.
really enjoying. I've got two female directors, a female manager, a female boss, and they're kick
Yeah.
ass, and I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's so wonderful. I'm just so happy for you. Now, of all the events you've done, like, has it mostly just been big conferences or what have you had like talk to me about sort of like the realm of experiences you've had?
Yeah, I have done the gamut, honestly, from small road shows like in corporate offices to large scale road shows around the globe, to the large developer conferences, where you've
Mhm.
got between 5 to 9,000 people.
Yeah.
Um, I've worked on a lot of them. I did one actually for Meta where it was David Beckham doing his book review,
Mm.
his release, and it was across 4 different countries at the same time. So it was
Oh,
a digital. So he was live in London, and I was in Hyderabad, India, and we had a colleague that was in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and another one that was in New York. And they were pioneering with Meta to do this build out where you were in your location, but you scanned this RFID wristband and you got to be on screen with him for a little bit. And he talked directly to you, and
oh,
then he
cool.
would sign a signature, and then it would go to, myself or whoever was directing the location and get printed and put into a book that was handed to them. So it was his signature to them,
Oh, cool.
and it was amazing. So I've had this whole gamut.
Is there a favorite kind of event you like to work on?
Oh, I love an event where I get to be in the creative development of a show, the production. Again, one of my leaders always loved a red thread. Angel Hansen loved a red thread. So in everything from like the registration pieces and through the backdrops and the set design to the welcome reception, attendee parties, she always wanted a creative red thread,
Mm,
which gave me the chance to go in and hire. I sit in Los Angeles and I can throw a stone to people that should sell out, you know,
yeah.
arenas.
Yeah.
Uh, so getting that chance to not only build an amazing content laden, rich event
Hmm.
with solid retention and good food so people could process the retention and all
Yeah.
that, and to take them into, a theater environment with an attendee reception a welcome reception and provide amazing music and amazing shows and
Yeah.
give them good entertainment, and in that theming still pull in content pieces like
Yeah.
from the song selection with the artist to even the choreography. We were reinforcing themes from technical content. Like no one does that. I
Yeah.
can hands down say no one does that, and we did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it brought so much joy. People left that conference with energy and excitement instead of
Yep.
exhaustion to go back on Monday.
Right.
It was really incredible. That kind of a show. The other one, and I have to say this is an honorary mention, I got the chance to work on the Microsoft Ability Summit one year.
Hmm.
And my goodness, it's a passion project of Satya Nadella's, and it
Mm.
focuses on technology that support any sort of disability or need.
Yeah.
So it's things like robotics, neurolinks, eye tracking, and eye movement. And I worked
Wow.
with Angel Hansen actually. After she got ripped, she and I sat on the other side and contracted for that one as specialists. We got to sit in a session with a young boy who had lost an arm, and they were working on technology to create a robotic arm for him. And they hired Tony Stark to come
Oh
present with his own little Iron Man arm.
my
Oh,
gosh.
we sat in the back of the room sobbing.
Sobbing. Yeah.
And we just looked at it like, this is why we're in this industry. And that again, that whole team run by an amazing woman that she's an absolute spitfire driving to make technology practical in these spaces
Yeah.
so that people are not othered by their
Right.
environment. And we just, that whole show, the post-event conference, we were like, this is the best thing ever. It was like, being back at summer camp at 12 years old, and we're like
Right.
crying to go home. But that's the
Yes.
kind of thing where it's like to create more space and more budget and more opportunity so that less people have to feel different in their environment. Or
Yeah.
that difference is celebrated,
Right.
wherever they're at in the
Right.
journey, because we know every person's in a different place.
Right.
Some want to pretend it doesn't exist, others want to be celebrated for it. And you can do both.
Right.
And that kind of an event gave us that platform. It was incredible.
I mean, that's just such cutting edge that's not um I mean, maybe there's an AI component to it, but it's like real life practicality kind of
Yeah.
things. And that is the stuff that really touches me so deeply. I
Oh, yeah.
I'm crying just thinking about how wonderful, like, I mean, just that, yeah, that people are thinking about those things.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes, you see the stories, hear the stories, read the stories, and it just feels like shit sandwich after shit sandwich after shit sandwich of people who don't care about anything or anything other than money. And then you go into these rooms and you see that's not true. And I think if
Yeah.
we could all just be more communal in how we interact with each other and like put down the phones more and get offline more. And that's why I really believe so strongly in the power of events, of
Yeah.
in person events. When the crash happened in 2009 and marketing budgets were slashed instantly, and then the
Yes.
first thing out of a marketing budget is for sure events. I was screaming at the top of my lungs like, no, 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 this is like person to person connection is
Mm.
the way. You can throw up a nice website, but that's not gonna bring loyalty to your brand. That's not going to align someone with your mission. That's not going to bring people to your side to see what they're not going to align with that. It's those real in-person connections that are so meaningful and powerful that change people's lives and brainwaves.
Absolutely. That's where I go back to the term people science, because the numbers are going to show you where to cut. Oh, yeah, start with the marketing and events.
Right.
But the reality is, there is reality and a greater reality. Reality
Right.
is, yes, it's a quick way to regain budget and level out your numbers for the stakeholders. But there's a downstream effect for that you might be fighting for years. Look at
Right.
us right now with the pandemic.
Right.
What industry is in probably some of the heaviest crisis? Recruiting.
Yeah.
Why? Because we undercut the in-person industries for almost 4 years,
Yeah.
not thinking about in the people science of it. Like 9 or 10 of your new hires are people you probably were having beers with in Hanover Messe or
Mm-hmm.
De Mexico or at MWC for the last 6 years, where you got to, in an informal environment, get to know how brilliant they were as a resource and
Mm-hmm.
decided they were the best hire fit for the company.
Yeah.
Oh, so that entire piece of organic recruitment is gone for
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
And now you're going purely off of LinkedIn reports
Right.
and resumes, which,
Right.
guess what? 90% of that is bull crap, in my opinion. You
Right.
need to see people. You need to shake their hand. You need to feel
Yep.
the energy they bring in. You
Yep.
need to talk them through their scope of knowledge of your industry.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just shameful almost that and there are ways to do it where you're not spending
Billion.
$2 million on a thing, right? Like I see this all the time and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, if you would just call me and like hire me for 2 months, I would help you figure out how to not spend $2 million and
Yes.
spend half of that and make a much more significant impact."
Yep. I mean, again, I go back to the people I've gotten to work with and grow from and be mentor. Angel Hansen, when she was internal at Microsoft, one of her programs, there was a total travel cutoff, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. There was a travel cutoff, and the optics were we shouldn't be meeting. And we're 2 months out from a program. It's essentially locked and built. And word comes down from the CVP to cancel it. We're not going to recoup anyone that's already booked their travel. We're
Oh,
all of our deposits on the space. I mean,
right.
it was like something like $200,000 or $300,000. It was already just paid. So they were going to cut and run and walk away from this over $250,000.
So wasteful.
And I will never be a yes person. I was trained by amazing women to not be a yes person, because as a subject matter expert, I'm here to train up as much as
Yeah.
I am to learn.
Yeah.
So she barreled in a room she should not have been in, spoke to people who she should not have been speaking to, and said, we can still do this and keep that money. We can push it back to X. I've already
Yep.
talked to XYZ. She
Yep.
smart, lined
Yeah.
it all up, talked to her industry contacts, used her Rolodex,
Yeah.
the real, and basically said, let's move it back X amount of months. We will lose this dollar amount, recoup all of this, and we still get the ROI of having the event and the training experience.
Yeah.
Of
And you don't
course they
have
did it.
pissed off people who have now aren't out now money for their travel plans.
Right, because the reality said we have to cut it off. We can't spend this money.
It's already
Smarter
spent.
reality,
Right.
educated reality said there's a better reality to
Right.
this. Let's move it out.
Yep.
Thank God for her, because of course she won tons of kudos for that.
Of
She also got a
course.
lot of hate for that from people that were yes people
Right.
and looked down like, well, why didn't you say this?
Yeah.
But those are those kinds of things where we need to be able to raise our hand and say there's a better way to do this, where we
Yeah.
could recoup money, we could be more fiscally responsible,
Right.
which teach more work, but it requires someone that knows their shit.
Right.
I wonder how much money is lost in this industry because they lowball, go with someone that doesn't know it, and then they have to pay someone twice as much to fix it.
Oh, I mean it happens all the time. The other thing is that like kudos to her for there are so many people who are afraid to say hey, here's the reality, like we can do this still. There are people who are risk averse. I am not
Mm.
one of those people. Much to my mother's chagrin, probably, like stay out of trouble, but I'm not that. I'm like, oh, let me just tiptoe up to the edge here and see how far I can get. I just think that so kudos to her for not being risk averse and saying like we can do this, and to those people who actually listened to her and were like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm the smartest person in the room.
thought leadership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Oh my
We were
gosh.
really lucky in that heyday. We ended up landing in a reorg with that whole program under a woman named Teresa DeVoe. She was an exec in HR at the time, and that woman is just brilliant. I think she's now a professor here in California, professor of business. But she literally walked in, acquiring this whole new team, whole new event, and she goes, "Okay, here's what I know. Now tell me what I need to know. You're my experts."
Oh, who does that?
Exactly. A really badass, humble woman that does that. She
Right.
was smart. She was good. Like she knew it well enough, and she was confident enough and kind enough and humble enough that, Angel had a spot at the table to
Yeah.
direct that and be as brilliant as she is with this woman that is brilliant enough to be that kind of a leader.
Yeah.
And we talk about it often because it's rare to get someone like at a CVP or VP level like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's where you just go, man, the trickle down effect is real.
Yeah.
To get this one leader that was
Yep.
so healthy to
Yep.
say, "You're my experts. Tell me what I need to know. I'll
Yeah.
make the decision, but you empower me with data."
Right. Because she knows that makes her look good to her superiors. Like it's
Mhm.
not that math is not difficult.
It's not. It's really not. And I mean, it helps that Angel's also brilliant. She's a wizard in like Excel and with budgets, so she can whip up something quickly. This is where it works. Having your subject matter experts,
Right.
you can whip up the projection to go, no, no, no. This isn't just like, I'm not brewing potions. I'm saying here's
Right.
numbers. This is numbers backed science. If
Yeah.
you will stop and listen before making rash decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, oh, I could talk to you about all these things for
I,
hours at a
we can
time.
solve all the world's ills right here.
We can. So I'm gonna have you back. And now I want to talk to all these badass women. Like I want
Oh, you
all their
should. They would
names and
love to.
numbers. That would be amazing.
Yes, they would love
I
to.
feel like somewhere in your home you probably have like this little altar for all these badass women who you've worked with and just like light these candles and this is like little scenario I have in my mind.
Absolutely. I
Your little
mean,
altar.
every woman's day.
Oh, I love it so much. Well, I just want to ask you just a couple more things because I've taken up
Yeah.
so much of your time. But I want to know what do you enjoy most about working in this space?
Simplistically, the people.
Yeah,
It's such a way to get into someone's life very quickly and make them feel seen
yeah,
and valued.
yeah,
Like it's all through practical things,
yeah,
but it's a way to make them feel valued, whether it's the clarity of communication, whether it's the recognition of their dietary needs, whether it's just, training your temp staff to think the same way so that every person they encounter is a reinforcement that they are valued and loved by the company they serve.
yeah, yeah,
I've seen how impactful that is to an
yeah,
attendee base and what it can do to the people that work at the company.
right.
The increased productivity, the enjoyment, the streamlined communication
Yep,
when you're removing the insecurity or the angst.
yep,
We have such a chance to do that as almost a direct representation of the leadership of the company.
yeah.
So again, I'd love to see my paycheck, but
Yeah. Well, the butterfly effect is real, and
yes,
I wish more people could see that. And again, it just comes back to like these IRL experiences are so important to that. I think people are online and maybe like even just a webinar is not the same as an IRL experience.
yeah.
Okay, total pivot, but my last question, what do you do when you're not spending 80 hours a week working on an event? And like, what do you do to keep yourself, what do you do in your off time that reminds you that you are fully living this one life that we have? Like, work isn't everything. So, what do
Yeah.
you do to in that regard?
Half of my answer is gross. I'm that person now.
Do it.
I'm finding exercise is my work-life balance.
Oh,
I have my calendar is sequestered at a certain hour of the day, and I am off to go to the gym and get that done.
good for
And
you.
then I can come back from that and address red flags and things like that. But it forces me
Yep.
to not do what I've done the majority of my career, and that is work till 7, 8,
Yep.
9, because I've just stayed in the seat.
Right.
Um, but ew, I'm that person now. The other,
No, I mean that just is like self-care, right? That people are
yeah,
finally realizing like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We've talked about work-life balance for 20 years, but it's never
yeah.
really been a thing.
Yeah, and the need is the work-life balance. I found this means through sequestering my calendar to exercise. That's sort of been the thing that's helped me consistently break away. Mind you, I
Yeah.
am not like a fitness guru. I started this in January. This was a whole new year to me thing that actually is
Yeah.
just still working. But
But that's great.
the other big part of that for me is travel. I,
Mm,
I
yep.
I'm sure you can tell from my worldview that I've presented so far. I love new cultures. I love new perspectives. I love adventures. So for me to travel is part of why I stayed in this industry. It has taken me all over Europe and the Middle East and Latin America and Asia. Like, love that part of it. And it's the thing that reminds me why I'm like, oh, this is why I do the data munging hours of my life in Excel,
Right.
the needless email sequences. It's because I love the chance to travel and experience new people and new cultures. And that's where I rest.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. And I feel the same way. I just love visiting new places and meeting people in those cultures and seeing how other people. When I was like 14, I wanted to work for the United Nations. So like
Oh,
I'm I'm not working for the United Nations, but I am able to travel similarly, maybe a little bit. It's that I had the vision I had in my mind when I was 14.
oh, it's one of my favorites. It's one of the things that I am so in love with this industry is its global reach.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am so grateful to you, my friend, and I feel like we could talk for hours more, so I might ask you to come back. So let's put a pin in
Sounds
that,
good.
as the kids say. Thank you, my darling friend. So I'm grateful that you've spent some time with us here today.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening to Uneventful. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure to subscribe to Uneventful wherever you listen to podcasts. Sharing and rating will help others find us as well. If you have feedback or your own stories to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please hit us up at uneventfulpod.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at wildmind.global. That's WYLDMYND.global on Instagram. The details are in the show notes. I'm so grateful for your time and support, and I'll see you next week.